In a dimly lit hallway, a silver-haired young man, a sharp sword in hand, having just murdered a man, walks menacingly toward the cowering woman. As the silver-haired young man approaches, she immediately questions him. Why? Why did you do this? He lowers his head slightly and scoffs. Why? What about you, mother? Why did you live so comfortably? Ah, no. I should call you the former empress, shouldn't I? He immediately raises his sword. Seeing this, she simply sits still, closes her eyes, and waits for the sharp blade to fall upon her. Immediately after being killed by her own son, her spirit leaves her body and floats in midair. She rubs her head and murmurs to herself, I'm dead. She silently watches him for a moment and wonders, separated by that door for 15 years, how much pain did he endure? The thought fills her with guilt, and she sobs. Lowering her head, she apologizes. I'm sorry, Yuri. As soon as she finishes speaking, her body begins to glow and fade, startling her, and oh wait, she cries out. Panicked, she thinks, could all those years have been the reason Yuri's heart broke? I can't leave him like this. I'll accept any punishment, so please, give me another chance. Suddenly, she sits bolt upright and cries out, Yuri. She stares in astonishment at the fluttering curtain in front of her for a moment, then murmurs, what's going on? Suddenly remembering something, she looks behind her and thinks, my diary. She goes to the table and picks up the diary. Frowning, she thinks this is from 10 years ago. Have I returned to the past? Lost in thought, she freezes for a moment. Then, she abruptly throws the diary aside and rushes off. She begins to reminisce. I was forced to leave Yuri from the moment he was born. As a baroness, I was looked down upon and ostracized every day. My husband, the emperor, was always on the battlefield. He was rarely at the royal palace. That's why you were my only hope. However, just minutes after Dahlia gave birth to Yuri, someone told her, thank you for giving birth to the crown prince. And from this moment on, your job is done. She sat up, stunned. Wait, she said. A dark-haired man coldly informed her. The care of the crown prince will be handled by the royal family. Dahlia quickly interrupted, wait. He didn't reply, but calmly walked out and slammed the door shut, leaving her with a multitude of questions. Then, she immediately turned to look at Yuri sleeping soundly beside her. She frowned in anguish, then gently lifted him and held him close. Just then, someone suddenly approached and gruffly demanded that the child be taken away. Hearing this, Dahlia quickly held him tighter. Then she pleaded loudly, please, don't make me part with him. I'll take care of him and make him happy. The woman clicked her tongue and coldly questioned, what can you do? She replied loudly, I'm his mother. The woman calmly continued, of course, giving birth to the crown prince is truly admirable. But the emperor says your job is now done. Dahlia softly retorted, but just then, as if sensing he was about to be separated from his mother forever, Yuri suddenly burst into tears. Seeing this, Dahlia quickly tried to soothe him. Before he could stop crying, the woman immediately came and snatched him from her arms, coldly ordering, take the child away. Despite Dahlia's cries, the woman calmly justified herself, saying, these are the emperor's orders. The maids gossiped amongst themselves. Oh my. A lowly baroness wants to raise the crown prince. At that moment, I knew I couldn't do anything. And from that moment on, I didn't see Yuri again, except for special occasions. I thought it would be better for him to grow up as the crown prince, without any connection to me. That's what I told myself. And that's how my first life ended. But, knocking on the door, she called out, Yuri, it's mother. Yuri. One of the two guards quickly intervened. Your Majesty, please don't do this. His Majesty has forbidden you from being here. We've told you many times. Dahlia hurriedly replied, no, I need to see him. I, the Empress, demand to see the crown prince. Do you dare disobey? The two guards exchanged glances. Then, one of them quickly took out a key, inserted it into the lock, and opened the door for her. She had only taken a few steps when his familiar small figure immediately appeared before her eyes. He looked at her in surprise and called out, Mother! Perhaps taken aback by Dahlia's sudden appearance, Yuri called out again, Mother! Then he stared at her wide-eyed for a long moment. She suddenly cried out, Yuri, and rushed forward to embrace him. The two guards, looking slightly flustered, glanced at each other. Yuri blinked in confusion for a moment. Then he quietly asked, what's wrong? Why did you suddenly? She didn't answer immediately, but gently stroked his head, lost in thought for a moment. Then she hesitantly explained, it's nothing. I just wanted to see you. She couldn't help but regretfully think, in my past life, everyone said that my marrying the emperor was an affront to the royal family. I agreed to some extent, and that's why I left Yuri, but now I know That was my biggest mistake in my past life. I won't run away from this anymore. Thinking to herself, Dahlia suddenly spoke, Yuri, my beloved son. Hearing this, Yuri gasped, overcome with emotion. She tightened her embrace, silently vowing, now, no matter what anyone says, I will make you happy. Just then, Yuri suddenly called out, Mother! This made her realize she was hugging him too tightly, and she immediately loosened her grip, saying apologetically, Oh, I'm sorry. Were you having trouble breathing? He softly replied, No, Mother. Mother, why didn't you answer any of my letters? Her eyes widened in surprise. Letters? She asked. Then, she quickly apologized, Oh my, I'm sorry. Suddenly, a bespectacled maid approached and coldly demanded, Empress Dahlia, I request that you leave now. The purple-haired maid behind her added in a low voice, The royal tutor will be arriving shortly. Your Highness, please wait a moment. Looking back at Dahlia, Yuri replied sadly, All right. Unwilling to let him go, she called out, Wait, Yuri. As he left, the bespectacled maid immediately crossed her arms and sighed sarcastically. Huh, how troublesome. Yesterday, the Empress stayed in her room, and now she's here. Dahlia asked coldly. The letters Yuri mentioned, where are they? The maid adjusted her glasses and feigned ignorance. I don't know anything. Hearing this, Dahlia lifted her chin and warned, If you don't give me Yuri's letters, I will make sure you leave this place in utter disgrace. Hurry up. The maid responded, startled. Yes, Your Majesty, please wait a moment. A while later, Dahlia sat by the window, waiting for the maids to bring the letters. As soon as they arrived with them, she quickly opened one and read its contents. Dear Mother, how are you? I miss you very much. I've been studying very hard. Do you hate me? I feel so lonely. I'm still waiting for your reply. After reading a few letters, she suddenly sobbed, tears streaming down her face. Yuri, she choked out, missed me so much. She then recalled standing before the impassive wooden door. Though she desperately wanted to go inside and see her beloved son, she was powerless and could only touch the door. Dahlia collapsed to her knees in anguish, knowing that even though Yuri was right there, she couldn't touch him, separated by the door. Seeing her heartbroken state, wiping away the tears streaming down her face after reading the letters, filled the purple-haired maid with remorse. Before she could speak, the bespectacled maid suddenly apologized sincerely. Your Majesty, I sincerely apologize for this. Dahlia frowned and asked irritably, Who told you to hide these letters? The maid stammered that. Dahlia snapped, Enough. You will be punished after I find out who is behind hiding these letters. Bring all of these letters to my room immediately. She responded in a panic, Yes, Your Majesty. As she stepped forward, she thought to herself, If I want to live with Yuri, I need to face that man. Everything that he has done. Since then, he and I haven't spoken to each other. However, thinking up to this point, she suddenly embraced the letters Yuri had written into her chest and closed her eyes. Next, she slowly opened her eyes, then slightly furrowed her brows and looked straight ahead with a gaze filled with determination. Then she loudly requested, I want to see the Emperor. The old butler was startled when he heard her say that, but he quickly regained his composure and respectfully replied, Please come in, Your Majesty. As soon as he saw her enter, the Emperor of the Uvarian Empire said, It's been a while. Dahlia didn't rush to reply, but calmly thought to herself, He is my husband and Yuri's father. Upon seeing Dahlia, the Emperor of the Uvarian Empire, Claude Alexander Uvaris, indifferently remarked, A distinguished guest. She hurriedly bowed and said, It's been a while, Your Majesty. Greetings, Light of Uvarian. He frowned at her and coldly asked, Is there some disturbance in the castle? She broke out in a sweat and replied in a low voice, Yes, that is why I came to see you. Claude didn't say anything, but abruptly stood up. Then he walked over to the chair and calmly sat down. Seeing this, the old butler smiled and gestured for her to come inside. He quickly prepared cakes and tea for both of them. While the old butler was pouring the tea, she suddenly asked, A closed door, you know about that, don't you, Your Majesty? Claude coldly replied, Yes. She didn't beat around the bush, but immediately made her request. Can you open that door for me? Then she thought to herself, the thing that has separated Yuri and me, that closed door. To open that door, royal permission and a special key are required. In my past life, I was always ignored, but somehow, if I can get Your Majesty's permission, then no one can interfere. Having finished her thoughts, she immediately bowed and pleaded, I want to ensure that the barriers between Yuri and me are removed. I beg you. Seeing Claude continuously staring at her and remaining silent, she couldn't help but wonder, why doesn't he answer? Dahlia knew that waiting reading wasn't the solution. So she immediately placed the letters Yuri had written to her on the table and seriously questioned. Just a few minutes ago, I found a stack of letters that Yuri wrote to me, letters that haven't reached me for a long time. It seems they've been sitting in the warehouse. Speaking up to this point, she couldn't help but feel indignant and think to herself, clearly, someone sabotaged Yuri's attempts to reach me. They dragged Yuri into this, which is absolutely unforgivable. Having finished her thoughts, Dahlia seriously declared, I understand. As a mother, I truly feel guilty towards him. From now on, I want to spend as much time as possible with Yuri. Then she slightly raised her head, observing the expression on Claude's face. A moment. Then, with a slight tremble in her voice, she said, until you grant me permission, I will not leave this place. I don't think the relationship between a mother and son should be severed by an outsider. Claude, upon hearing Dahlia's words, lowered his head slightly and contemplated the matter for a moment. Then, he calmly said, do as you wish. Dahlia, upon hearing this, couldn't help but ask suspiciously, are you sure? He calmly countered, weren't you the one who said you wouldn't leave until I permitted it? She froze for a moment, then choked out, thank you very much, Your Majesty. Then, please excuse me. Just as she stood up and prepared to leave, Claude suddenly spoke, stopping her. Wait, I will allow you to open that door, but on one condition. She asked in bewilderment. A condition? He didn't answer immediately, but unexpectedly stood up and walked towards her. He held up a set of keys and calmly stated his condition. You must come here to retrieve the key and return it to me each time. She softly uttered, then furrowed her brows in confusion, thinking to herself, what could he possibly gain from this? But if it's for Yuri, thinking of this, Dahlia immediately dismissed all her doubts and quickly reached out to take the keys, replying, I understand. As soon as she had the keys in hand, she hurriedly bowed in farewell. He said nothing more, only looking down at the palm of his left hand. A few moments later, at the familiar closed door, she smiled faintly and said gratefully, thank you for your hard work. I have received the key from His Majesty. Can you open the door for me? The two guards looked at each other in confusion. Hearing the creak of the opening door, she couldn't help but feel moved, thinking to herself, that closed door has finally opened. Finally, I've changed the future. Where is Yuri? Whose orders were those? To keep me in the dark about Yuri's whereabouts. Ah, there he is. Let's see. I heard women really like flowers. Would you like to pick flowers with me next time? I'll be waiting for your answer, Mother. After reading the letter, Dahlia immediately called out Yuri. Seeing her suddenly appear there startled him, and he quickly asked, Mother, is that? She looked at him with heartache and said apologetically, I'm so sorry. It took me so long to get here. I know this is only a few of them, but I will read all the letters you wrote me, and I will answer each one. But first, the flowers in this letter, they're from here, aren't they? You draw very well. Suddenly hearing something, Yuri immediately stood up and bowed his head apologetically, saying, I'm sorry. Seeing him suddenly run off made her panic, and she reached out and called loudly, Wait, Yuri! Seeing him disappear from her sight, she reluctantly withdrew her hand and choked out in anguish Yuri. Dejectedly resting her head on the table, Dahlia sighed and thought to herself, Yesterday, I was so happy to see Yuri that I rushed things before thinking them through and ended up confusing him. But then again, if I didn't have a second chance at life, I would never have known all the things Yuri wrote about how he felt about me. So, I have to be more careful. After all, children who lack parental affection are often very sensitive. Just as I was thinking this, Dahlia suddenly shook her head a few times. She then went to the window, opened the curtains, and continued to think, no, just thinking about these things here won't help me understand Yuri's true feelings. She then quickly set a goal. First, I should start by learning more about Yuri. A moment later, standing in front of Claude's door, Dahlia hesitated, thinking, even though I've made up my mind. She sighed unconsciously. Then she frowned and wondered, every time I want to see Yuri, I have to see His Majesty, don't I? Just as Dahlia raised her hand to knock, someone suddenly spoke, His Majesty is not here. He has gone to inspect the Berchasia territory. Surely you knew about this, Your Majesty? Looking at the woman with clear displeasure, she reluctantly addressed her. Lady Andoclax. Then, thinking with distaste, she's the Emperor's aunt. Yes, she's the one who took Yuri away from me. Turning coldly, she said, I know. I'll come back later. Seeing that she was about to leave, the woman said, "Oh, if it's just unlocking the door, I can do that for you." Hearing this, Dahlia quickly turned back to look at her. Then, she couldn't help but think suspiciously, no matter what happened, she never tried to let me see Yuri before. Has the future changed? Lady Andaclax suddenly took out a piece of paper and began to write something on it. Then, handing it to Dahlia, she said with a smile, "Here, just give this permit to the guard and go through." Dahlia looked at her hesitantly for a moment, then quickly reached out to take it, replying, "Thank you, Lady Andaclax." As soon as she finished speaking, Lady Andaclax immediately dropped the paper to the ground. Then, she unexpectedly stomped on the paper several times. She warned in a harsh voice, "However, do not interfere with the Crown Prince's studies." In the imperial family, it is the tradition of the women on the paternal side to oversee education for generations. Dahlia asked coldly, "Did His Majesty say that?" She suddenly remembered Claude's words to her, "Leave everything else to the imperial tutor." Lady Andaclax snapped, "You won't forget that, will you?" As she passed by Dahlia, she pretended to accidentally bump into her shoulder. Then, she said loudly, "Know your place." After Lady Andaclax had completely left, Dahlia quickly bent down and picked up the paper. Then, she seriously considered, Lady Andaclax holds power in this castle and is watching over Yuri. It wouldn't be wise to oppose her at this time. There are many things I can do from afar to understand Yuri better. First, I must observe. A while later, in the area where Yuri resided, he was diligently practicing swordsmanship with his instructor. As soon as he finished his sword practice, he was made to sit at his study table. And it was a long time after that before he was allowed to eat. But perhaps because his studies and training were a bit too strenuous, Yuri accidentally dropped half a tomato slice onto the floor. He let out a startled cry. The short-haired maid quickly approached and picked it up with a handkerchief. She then calmly turned and left. Seeing that she didn't scold him, he said, "I'm sorry." Then he sadly lowered his head and looked down at the food on his plate. While observing him, Dahlia couldn't help but ache with sympathy, thinking to herself, "After watching Yuri all day, I've realized a few things." Yuri spends most of his time in silence and rarely smiles. Suddenly hearing a sound, Yuri immediately grabbed something from the table and quickly slipped it into his pocket. A little surprised, she thought fruit. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was around, he quickly left the dining room and ran somewhere. Following him, she thought with some surprise, he was there yesterday too. Just as she finished that thought, a puppy suddenly jumped out from a flower bush. It happily licked the apple in Yuri's hand. Seeing this, Dahlia thought in surprise, that's what Yuri put in his pocket earlier. While petting the puppy, he asked with a cheerful smile, "Tasty?" "Don't rush, eat slowly." As soon as he finished speaking, the puppy suddenly widened its eyes at him and barked excitedly twice. Seeing this, he quickly picked it up, let lick his face, and exclaimed with a beaming smile, "Wow, so cool." Witnessing this scene, Dahlia couldn't help but think in astonishment. This is the first time I've seen Yuri with such an expression. So, Yuri also has a secret friend. Suddenly remembering the bottle of milk, she exclaimed, "That's right," and quickly ran off, thinking hopefully he'll be happy if I bring him some milk, right? While Yuri was busy playing with the puppy, someone suddenly appeared, causing him to cry out in surprise. Seeing Lady Andaclax preparing to discipline him with a whip, he fearfully explained, "I'm sorry, this is..." She coldly ordered, "Take the dog away." One of the maids immediately stepped forward and grabbed the puppy by the scruff of its neck. While the other maid held him back, preventing him from running after her, he feared that the maid would harm the puppy. So he immediately shouted, "No, wait. Please wait." He then rushed to Lady Andaclax's side and pleaded, "Aunt, stop it please, I beg you." She coldly pushed his hand away and angrily scolded him. Shameful. Imagine the crown prince playing with a filthy dog. You shouldn't waste even a second on such meaningless things. Haven't I told you many times to only think about the benefit of the nation? You must be punished. Come here, quickly hold out your hand. Yuri sadly lowered his head without saying anything more and calmly rolled up his sleeve. Seeing this, she smirked smugly. Then she quickly raised the whip in her hand. Just as she was about to strike, someone suddenly ran over and shouted, "Put your hand down." At this moment, at the gates of the Imperial Palace, the inspection team, led by Claude, finally returned. The orange-haired man immediately saluted. Then, he respectfully greeted, "Welcome back, Your Majesty." Emperor Claude looked at him silently for a few seconds before replying in a low voice, I've returned. How are things?" He scratched his head hesitantly and answered, "Well, about that." After listening to the report, Claude remarked, "The gate. It seems they've done exactly as instructed." At the same time, where Yuri was, Lady Andoclax tapped her riding crop against her hand and sneered. She approached Yuri, who was holding his hand out, trembling, in anticipation of the familiar lashing. Just as she raised her hand, someone suddenly came running and shouted, "Stop! Put your hand down!" This person then knocked a bowl of milk to the floor and rushed to embrace the boy. Seeing this, Lady Andoclax clicked her tongue in annoyance. Yuri, stunned, cried out, "Mother!" upon seeing Dahlia. Dahlia glared at Lady Andoclax and demanded, "Lady Andoclax, what is the meaning of this?" Lady Andoclax sighed in exasperation and retorted, "Your Majesty, are you planning to ignore the warning I gave you earlier?" The maid with the bun hairstyle immediately bowed and reported, "I decided to follow His Highness because of his strange behavior, and I caught him feeding a filthy dog." Lady Andoclax continued disdainfully, "Such shameful behavior is truly concerning for someone in the Crown Prince's position. Perhaps they call this like mother, like son, don't they?" Dahlia frowned and asked loudly, "Where is that dog?" Lady Andoclax replied casually, "That filthy thing has been taken care of. Playing with a stray dog is a waste of His Highness's time. By now, it's probably resting comfortably in the incinerator." Dahlia shouted indignantly, "How cruel!" Lady Andoclax immediately pointed her riding crop at Dahlia and ordered, "Silence. His Majesty has entrusted me with the prince's education. Eliminating all bad habits is only natural. A daughter of a lowly baron has no right to cause a scene here." Dahlia stammered, but Yuri suddenly cried out, "Please stop, Mother. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Dahlia gently placed her hand on Yuri and comforted him. "Yuri, you did nothing wrong." Yuri remained silent, sobbing uncontrollably. Seeing him like this, Dahlia's heart ached, but she didn't know what to do next. Lady Andoclax suddenly slammed her riding crop against her hand and said triumphantly, "No, the Crown Prince is right. Your Highness, your foolish pretense is the reason. That dog was killed." Yuri cried out in anguish, "I'm sorry." Lady Andoclax sneered, "How pathetic. Crying over a common dog." Dahlia snapped furiously, "Enough. The pathetic one here is you." Lady Andoclax stared at her, stunned. Then she retorted angrily, "What did you just say?" Dahlia continued firmly, "You may refuse to acknowledge me, but as this child's mother, I will not tolerate your rudeness any longer." Lady Andoclax exclaimed in shock, "What?" Dahlia calmly explained, "The fact that the Crown Prince is shedding tears over a dog, isn't it because he has a kind heart? Afterwards, perhaps you were too focused on your reputation and forgot your humanity." She heard that and angrily shouted, "How impudent!" Dahlia triumphantly continued, "And one more thing. The letter from Yuri, for some reason, was delivered late yesterday, and you were the one who stealthily read it before it reached me and even ordered it hidden in the warehouse. Lady Andoclax, you were the one who had a hand in all of this, weren't you?" Lady Andoclax, upon hearing this, laughed loudly and asked, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Baselessly accusing someone without evidence, just as I'd expect from a baron's daughter. Dahlia immediately ran over and grabbed her wrist, then sneered, "How strange. All the letters sent to me have the exact same strong scent as your perfume." Lady Andoclax, startled, pulled her hand back and tried to appear calm as she continued in a strained voice, "No one has ever dared to behave so rudely to me in my life. My nephew is Lord Cloud, the Emperor. Do you think he'll be pleased to hear about this?" Just then, Claude suddenly appeared and coldly asked, "Who just mentioned my name?" Upon seeing him, Lady Andoclax's face lit up as she called out affectionately, "Your Majesty." Dahlia's eyes widened in surprise at seeing Claude there. Yuri, meanwhile, was frozen in place, utterly bewildered. Then, Dahlia suddenly spread her arms and stood in front of Yuri, frowning slightly as she thought. His Majesty himself appointed Lady Andoclax as the imperial tutor, which means he'll definitely side with her. Before Dahlia could speak, Lady Andoclax quickly seized the opportunity to feign innocence, saying, "Oh dear, I am deeply hurt to be accused of such unspeakable crimes. It seems the Empress is delusional. I truly worry for the future of our imperial family." Hearing her say that, Dahlia involuntarily recalled the time she had just given birth to Yuri, and Lady Andoclax's cold expression as she calmly informed her that even the Emperor said Dahlia's duty was now fulfilled. Recalling the past heightened Dahlia's vigilance against Lady Andoclax's schemes. Claude suddenly barked, "Remove your hand." Lady Andaclax, stunned, asked what. He glared at her and repeated, "I said, take your filthy hand off of me." His terrifying expression and disrespectful words startled Lady Andaclax. Dahlia and Yuri were both astonished and slightly awed. Lady Andaclax asked in a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, you, what do you mean?" He coldly replied, "I've had you watch for some time." She was taken aback. "Huh? You've been surveilling me?" Claude interrogated her. "I didn't know you could act so cruelly while I was away at war." She stammered, "I was only trying to raise the crown prince properly." He demanded, "And stealing his letters is part of raising him properly?" Clutching her skirt, she whispered, "No." Claude sighed wearily, then said sternly, "I tried to respect you. You are the Empress Dowager's only remaining relative, but blood ties only go so far. Your crimes will be punished by death." Lady Andaclake, upon hearing this, was horrified and fell to her knees, then screamed in panic, "No, impossible. Your Majesty, please, I beg you, Your Majesty, please reconsider. Please forgive my insolence." Seeing Claude about to leave, Dahlia raised her voice in remonstration, "Your Majesty, please don't go yet." He seriously explained the reason. "She committed the crime of insulting the imperial family. As emperor, I cannot allow such a precedent to be set." She quickly made a suggestion. "Yes, Your Majesty, I understand. However, instead of the death penalty, I think we should strip her of her title and banish her from the palace to repent for her sins." Hearing this, he hesitated slightly and said no that he didn't finish his sentence, as his gaze suddenly met Yuri's eyes, filled with expectation. He paused for a moment to think carefully about the matter. Then he coldly reminded, "Remember to thank the Empress." Then he quickly turned and left. Knowing that she would not be joining her ancestors anytime soon, Lady Andaclake immediately bowed her head in gratitude and said, "I apologize, Empress Dahlia. Andaclake, will forever be loyal to the Empress." Dahlia quickly corrected her. "Not to me. You should be loyal to Yuri. If you were to die now, I'm certain Yuri would blame himself for it." Having said this, she suddenly fell silent for a moment, lost in thought. Then, with a bright smile, she asked, "Anyway, do you know about North Candela? I hear it's quite strict, or at least that's what I've heard." Lady Andaclake said nothing, her face darkening with fear as she thought. "That's an ice prison, a place that even criminals fear." Dahlia calmly declared, "Starting tomorrow, you will be exiled to the North Candela headquarters." Then, she coldly took Yuri's hand and said, "Let's go, Yuri." He replied softly, "Yes, mother." He then suddenly turned his head and stared at Lady Andaclake for a moment. He then turned back and left with Dahlia, leaving Lady Andaclake alone. A while later, in Dahlia's room, while stroking Yuri's head, she apologized about what happened. "I'm sorry I didn't arrive sooner." He replied with an embarrassed smile, "No." Then, with a hint of disbelief, he thought, "I don't understand why Mother is apologizing when it was my fault all my fault." Suddenly hearing a dog bark, both mother and son immediately looked at each other. Not letting them wonder for long, the orange-haired man quickly entered, carrying a cage with a puppy inside, and said with a wide smile, "Apologies for the interruption, but I have acquired a gift for Prince Yuri." Yuri immediately jumped up and exclaimed in disbelief, "Zuzu." Then he quickly asked, "But how is this possible?" The man bowed his head and explained, "I was ordered to be vigilant to prevent any incidents from occurring. That is how I protect you, Your Highness. I also have a message from His Majesty. This is also fate. If His Highness wishes, he can take care of the puppy in the castle." Those were his words. Dahlia, upon hearing this, exclaimed, "That's wonderful." Yuri happily replied, "Yes." The orange-haired man, Johann, suddenly spoke up, "We'll need to take the puppy to the veterinarian first, so please be patient, Your Highness. Forgive me for the late introduction. I am Johann, Colonel of the Royal Guard. I hope we can become closer from now on." Dahlia graciously replied, "Certainly, I hope so too." She then couldn't help but think wistfully, how nostalgic. Amidst the crowd of people who shunned me in my past life, Johann complimented her with a smile, "Your Majesty, your dress today is truly radiant." Dahlia's thoughts continued. "He was the only one who always welcomed me. I don't know how long it's been since I first met him. But that's right. This person." Thinking this, she suddenly spoke up, "Johann, could I ask you a small favor?" He cheerfully replied, "Of course, Your Majesty, anything you wish." Feeling a bit hesitant, she thought, "I'm sorry, Johann. This will certainly be difficult for you." She continued aloud, "By the way," then leaned close to his ear and whispered something. Whatever she said caused him to suddenly flinch. Then, with tears welling up, he asked, "What did you say?" Yuri stared straight ahead at an incredibly adorable puppy. Seeing the servants roughly washing the puppy, he thought, I want to bathe Zuzu too. But remembering Claude's scowling, angry face when he called the puppy filthy, Yuri hesitated. He shook his head. Suddenly, a voice came from behind him. "I want to help too." Dahlia rolled up her sleeves. Seeing her, he called out, "Mother." A maid anxiously said, "But it will dirty your hands, ma'am." She froze for a moment. Dahlia thought, "It seems my strictness with the servants has had an effect. They've improved a lot recently." She told the maid, "It's all right. This puppy is precious to Yuri." The maid stood up and replied, "Yes, as you wish." Dahlia cheerfully said, "Come here." The puppy, as if understanding she was calling him, seemed to think, "Zuzu? Calling me?" She looked at Yuri and asked, "Do you want to bathe Zuzu?" Yuri replied, "But I want to play with Zuzu a little more." He wavered, but the puppy, in an excited state, seemed to beckon, "Bathe me, bathe me." Yuri looked at the puppy with bright, star-like eyes. Without hesitation, Yuri ran towards the puppy. He and Dahlia happily bathed Zuzu. Dahlia said, "All right, let's bathe Zuzu." Yuri replied, "Yes, just a little longer, Zuzu." Then they both happily bathed the puppy. They were incredibly surprised that, "Oh my goodness, the puppy looks so beautiful and adorable." Woof! Yuri excitedly hugged the puppy and called, "Zuzu." The maid also exclaimed, "Was the puppy this cute all along?" Yuri nuzzled the puppy affectionately. Johan looked out the window. He saw Yuri happily playing with Zuzu. He remarked, "He doesn't look dirty at all now, quite different from before." Cloud replied, "I know." Johan said, "Actually, if His Majesty hadn't told me to be careful in everything, that puppy probably wouldn't be like this now." Then he countered himself, "No, to be precise, I wanted His Majesty to see him like this." Earlier, Johan, who had taken Zuzu from the maid, boasted confidently, "That's how I help people." However, Claude didn't care and bluntly said, "I don't mind." Hearing that, Johan's little heart felt hurt, too sensitive. He suddenly remembered, "Oh right, the royal tutor was punished, so what happened to her?" Claude replied, "Oh, she was sent to Not Gandela Institute." Hearing this, Johan was frightened. That place. "I'd rather die." He said to Claude, "It's always like this. Everything you do is terrifying." Claude responded, "She chose the location herself." Johan, scared, said again, "Huh." Hearing him mumble, Claude asked again, "What do you mean?" Johan's eyes darted around. He just turned away and said, well, the Empress needed my help. Earlier, Dahlia had asked Johan, "Could you do me a favor? Please tell His Majesty." He relayed the message, "Please return all authority back to the Empress." That's what she said. He bluntly replied, "I know. I can't do that." He explained, "Giving authority to the Empress also means giving her the right to raise the Crown Prince." Zuzu, are you sure those rebels would miss such tempting prey? He'll likely attack Yuri when he gets the chance. There's no way I'm returning the throne to his son. Johan thought for a moment, but Claude put down his pen and wrote something. After writing, he handed the paper to Johan and said, "Here, give this back to the Empress." Johan asked, "Just me?" Claude didn't answer him. He tearfully wanted a refuse, in a way. Dahlia sighed, exhausted. She thought, while playing with Yuri, "It's like I become a child again, immersed in soap bubbles. It's so nice to have Zuzu back." She unconsciously laughed. She thought back to earlier. Yuri had lost Zuzu a long time ago, but I couldn't do anything. Do I really deserve to have moments like these? She thought, before I was killed in my past life, I couldn't help and couldn't understand Yuri's pain. This is the guilt I've carried my whole life. She felt incredibly remorseful. I can't change the past, and Yuri will never be able to forget that pain. Thinking back, she realized, no matter how much I regret it, I can't change anything. She resolved, "So this time, I won't let you be sad again." A voice called out, "Excuse me." She asked, "What is it?" The maid replied, "I'm Emma, Your Majesty. May I come in?" Dahlia said, "Yes, you may enter." The maid entered, followed by Yuri. She was surprised. "Oh, Yuri." She asked, "What's the matter?" He shyly called out, "Mother." He continued, "I want to talk to you." Yuri was clinging tightly to Emma, the maid's skirt. His eyes looked at her with embarrassment, his face flushing momentarily. Dahlia smiled and bent down to ask him, "What is it, Yuri?" He fumbled, unsure how to say it properly. "Yes." He bowed his head and mumbled an apology to her. "This time, I'm really sorry for what I did." Yuri bowed politely. "I'm sorry for leaving so suddenly." "Oh, earlier." Dahlia recalled the moment, and he choked up, "You got dirty when you bathed Zuzu. I should have stayed to help you." He clutched his bag strings tightly. "It's all my fault." It's okay, Yuri. Dahlia sat down, smiling forgivingly at him. Zuzu's all clean now too, right? She brought up the incident in the flower garden. Perhaps you're afraid they'll come after Zuzu, aren't you? Yuri was in a state of absolute terror. I'm sure Yuri is haunted by what happened before, so he doesn't dare go near Zuzu. He knows what will happen if they catch Zuzu. He gulped fearfully, his hand still clutching the strap of his bag. And there's one more thing. Yuri blurted out awkwardly. Dahlia smiled, listening as he finished. Could we go look at the flowers again? Hearing this, her heart melted. Oh, of course, certainly. She smiled brightly in response. We can go as many times as you like. She even linked pinkies with Yuri. I promise. He stared, stunned, at their joined hands. Dahlia wanted to treat him like a real boy. You have so many responsibilities, such a heavy burden to bear. So I hope your heart will feel lighter, even just a little. Emma looked at the bulging bag at his hip. She smiled gently and reminded him, Prince Yuri, you have something for the Empress, don't you? Yuri realized and hurriedly opened his bag to retrieve the item. Oh, right. She watched him, exclaiming, so cute. Her face flushed from being near such an adorable boy. Suddenly, he looked up at her, eyes brimming with tears. He turned to Emma for help. She called out awkwardly, Your Highness. She stepped forward, gently stroking his cheek and softly calling his name. Yuri. Dahlia stepped closer, wanting him to open up to her more. You can tell me anything. She pondered. For example, she offered a few examples to help Yuri understand. I had a lot of fun playing with Zuzu today. I had a bad dream last night. Or, the sky is so beautiful today. Anything at all. Dahlia shared her feelings with him sincerely. I'm so happy to talk with you. Just hearing your voice makes me happy. She pulled Yuri closer, whispering, That's why you shouldn't be so shy, okay? His face suddenly flushed crimson. He mumbled to himself, This feeling is so strange. He abruptly and awkwardly pulled his hands away from hers. I'll be right back. Oh, Emma looked down, stunned. But contrary to Emma's worry, Empress Dahlia smiled and waved goodbye. I understand. Dahlia didn't mind. It's okay if you don't tell me now. There's plenty of time later. The boy was still hesitant, not daring to step out of his comfort zone. Finally, she stood from afar, watching as the maid opened the door for a timid Yuri to leave the Empress's chambers. Come to think of it, this is around the time of the Glory Festival, isn't it? She worried about Yuri. The Glory Festival. When a member of the royal family turns 6, they are given a sword and a shield to symbolize their parents' trust and love. And they are recognized as an official member of the royal family, someone who will bear the fate of this country. Yuri had left the room, leaving only his close attendant bowing at the door. Emma, she instructed the maid, after you take Yuri back, could we talk for a bit? She nodded respectfully. Yes, Your Majesty. The letter was an invitation addressed to Mother. You can dance with me at the festival. Glory? On his bed, Yuri pressed his face into his pillow, a letter he intended to send to Dahlia lying nearby. He hadn't sent it for a reason. She's the Empress, and she has duties to attend to. That's why she's able to be by my side. I shouldn't expect too much. He buried his face deeper, a sense of unease washing over him. And in Yuri's mind, a terrifying image resurfaced. He clawed, repeatedly mocked him, twisting the knife in his wound. You a prince? The thought made Yuri tremble with fear. Zuzu, sensing his sadness, sat dejectedly nearby, watching him. Zuzu. Yuri reached out and lifted the little dog in his arms. Yuri felt less lonely with Zuzu by his side. He mumbled to himself, not wanting to cause any more trouble for anyone. Emma had returned and stood beside the Empress, awaiting instructions. In her hands, she held a small chest gleaming with gold. Dahlia confided, I'm planning to give Yuri a gift. Inside was a jeweled necklace, sparkling brightly. I need you to go into town and exchange this for cash. Emma asked, surprised, exchange it for cash. Dahlia nodded in confirmation. Yes. Time rewound to a month after their wedding. She had received this ruby necklace, her eyes sparkling. She'd asked him, Your Majesty, are you really giving this to me? Claude, sitting opposite her, had nodded casually, yes. You can throw it away if you don't like it. At the time, Dahlia had been overjoyed, expressing her gratitude. She clutched the necklace to her chest. Oh, I would never. Thank you for the gift. She remembered clearly how happy and excited she had been. It was her first gift. It felt like being recognized as his wife. Emma asked again, Are you sure, Your Majesty? Dahlia sighed softly and nodded. Yes. After all, my authority hasn't been restored yet, and I don't have much money left. There's no point in keeping something I won't use. She had her own reasons. Before, I used that gift as motivation for my position as Empress. But I don't need to rely on it anymore. She murmured to Emma, I think this piece will fetch a very high price. Oh, and she said, presenting a smaller chest containing a sparkling flower brooch. This is for you. Emma was taken aback. For me, Your Majesty? Mentioning the boy, Dahlia's face lit up with a smile. Yes. I saw Yuri's actions earlier. He smiled much more openly with you. It's good that someone truly cares for Yuri. She shared her JOY.SO. This is just a small token of my appreciation. Will you accept it? Emma teared up. Your Majesty. Lost in thought, Dahlia continued murmuring to her maid, Yuri loves flowers, doesn't he? If you wear this flower brooch. She gently took the jewelry out of the box and stepped closer to Emma, helping her pin it to her left side, but he's sure to like it. I was so afraid of power that I couldn't even take care of anyone. Emma looked at her with a mixture of awkwardness and confusion. I wonder if I deserve to be forgiven. Dahlia called out softly again, Emma? Yes, Your Majesty. Emma replied. Dahlia smiled, seeking her opinion that I hope you can stay by my side from now on. Emma nodded in agreement, confirming, I, Emma, your trusted maid, swear to serve you with all my heart. Emma placed her hand on her left breast, just below the sparkling brooch. By the way, Your Majesty, she said, expertly pouring a cup of hot tea. Emma asked curiously, what are you planning to give Prince Yuri? Hearing this, Dahlia's eyes crinkled into a smile as she clasped her hands together playfully. Hee. About that. Emma stood sternly beside the Empress, watching the man before them. That I'm afraid the gifts Your Majesty wished to give the Crown Prince have recently gone out of stock. He arrived before the gifts were fully stocked, so I had a difficult time finding them. Dahlia nodded, observing from her seat. That must have been quite troublesome for you. Hearing this, the man appeared frightened and quickly waved his hands. Not at all, Your Majesty. Today is the Crown Prince's important day, after all. He muttered, pulling a sturdy shield from the pile of gifts. Yes, oh, then how about this shield as a replacement gift for the Crown Prince? Emma's face turned purple with anger. Isn't this just an ordinary item? Is he trying to deceive Her Majesty? You won't find a shield like this anywhere. Dahlia brought a hand to her chin, observing closely. She showed no expression of pleasure or displeasure. Yes, that's so. And what about you? May I see what you have prepared? Dahlia glanced at the young man beside her. He stammered, Your Majesty. The young man bowed his head in fear. That I deeply apologize, Your Majesty. We were unable to prepare a shield worthy of the Crown Prince. She pointed forward. You, leave. The man beside her sneered at the young man. Right, leave. In the end, he was the most surprised. Following her gesture, Emma lifted the man and carried him out of the room. She closed her fan and, frowning, addressed him as he looked back. Thank you for your efforts in selecting products for the royal family, but I'm afraid we will never see you again. The man was furious, calling out as Emma unceremoniously deposited him in the hall. Hey, what does she think she's doing? She doesn't even understand the value of my products. Just moments ago, he had been respectful, but now his attitude had changed completely out of course. A common baroness like her, how could she possibly know? He leered, attempting to touch Emma. A sharp slap rang out. Ouch! He sat on the ground, frightened but still yelling at her. What? You little brat! How dare you? Emma glared at him. Didn't you hear, Her Majesty? He frowned, confused. You appeared before the royal family. Emma reiterated the meaning of Dahlia's earlier words, only to show useless items to the Empress. He was taken aback. Useless? Emma shouted in his face. Never appear before Her Majesty's magnificent presence again. She stood at the doorway and slammed the door shut. You despicable, bald-headed swindler, made Emma return to the room. Bowing her head, I apologize, Your Majesty. She took full responsibility that I was the one who arranged this merchant's visit. Please punish me. Saying this, she closed her eyes, bracing for the Empress's anger, but Dahlia simply called her name softly. Emma. Surprise. A jack-in-the-box suddenly sprung open and made Emma jump back in fright. Seeing her wide-eyed, fearful expression, Dahlia giggled with delight at the toy she had found. Hee. You were scared, weren't you? The young man on the other side was also surprised. Her demeanor had completely changed. Dahlia acknowledged Emma's dedication, murmuring as she looked at the gifts piled up in the room. She prepared so many lovely gifts for us. Why should she be punished? But she still seemed hesitant. I want you to help me buy a gift. She repeated the words from that day. It was the order I gave you. Is that right? So don't worry. We'll find a shield for the Festival of Glory somewhere else. The young man shakily announced. With all due respect, Your Majesty, he had clearly noticed everything that happened at the shop. The other day, I saw Duke Straggler buy up all the swords and shields in the country. So, I'm afraid there won't be any shields suitable for the Crown Prince. Dahlia muttered to herself, thinking about this person Duke Straggler. Duke Straggler is the emperor's cousin and usurped Yuri's position. The reason I married His Majesty was to prevent Duke Straggler's son from inheriting the throne. A loveless marriage, solely for the purpose of producing an heir to the throne. The reason I married His Majesty was to prevent Duke Straggler's son from inheriting the throne. A loveless marriage, solely for the purpose of producing an heir. She still laughed heartily to ease his worries. Don't worry about the shield anymore. I'll come up with another plan. Thank you for informing me. She had her own calculations. Emma, could you go into town and deliver this letter? She handed over a carefully sealed letter, not forgetting to add, as quickly as possible, all right? Emma was once again favored by Dahlia. She was momentarily stunned as she accepted it. Yes, Your Majesty. And him, she couldn't forget his part either. She proceeded to instruct him on a few things that should be written on the invoice. Can you prepare these 2 types of fabric? Oh, and some buttons too. And some cotton as well. Emma, curious, asked Dahlia from behind, Your Majesty, if I may ask, why did you order so many preparations? Having assigned the tasks, she breathed a sigh of relief. Then looked forward to that day arriving quickly. Johann, hearing this, suddenly had a sparkle in his eyes, excitedly anticipating a birthday party. Emma quickly signaled a reminder, please lower your voice, because right outside, Yuri is playing with Zuzu. He also realized he had misspoken and hurriedly covered his mouth. The two of them talked while glancing towards the little prince. Before the Festival of Glory, the Empress hoped to lessen Yuri's stress as much as possible. Emma, the maid, spoke while recalling that moment with Dahlia. She looked intently at the toy duck and replied, I want him to understand how precious and joyful a birthday party is. Emma shared frankly with Johann, I feel the same way. He then sank into his own thoughts. He shared the precious gift he received on his childhood birthday. Ah, I remember now. Johann exclaimed, when I was little, my parents made me a big pudding cake for my birthday. Sugar was an extremely precious commodity back then, and even now, I still cherish that precious memory. Emma frowned and turned back, huh? Her expression was stern and cold as she looked back at Johann. I couldn't hear what you were saying. Johann dejectedly apologized. He glanced at the prince with a joyful look. Anyway, Her Majesty truly loves Crown Prince Yuri, doesn't she? Emma also felt the same. That's right. Oh, Johann smiled and glanced back. Her Majesty's feelings are so easy to perceive. So, are you willing to lend me a hand? She hoped to enlist Johann's help. Looking at her serious expression, he mumbled awkwardly to himself. It's best if I don't give that letter to His Majesty right now. He had even considered His Majesty's expressions and attitude. Johann smiled faintly and happily agreed, of course. Let's prepare the most wonderful birthday party. Only 24 days left, everyone was in a flurry of preparation. In her past life, Yuri had never seen Dahlia smile like this, but this time, she was determined. The 3 of them were breathlessly blowing up balloons for decorations. But this time, everyone was busy preparing a surprise for Prince Yuri. Mother really wants you to know. Mother is truly happy you were born. The other maid sighed softly, asking the exhausted Emma beside her, when was the last time the Empress's palace was this lively? Probably since the Crown Prince was born. Dahlia then appeared from inside, wrapping her arms around them both. What are you all talking about? She also bluntly declared, from now on, every year will be this lively, because this is the most important day of the year. At this time, Yuri was diligently studying. Suddenly, a noise came from behind him. Yuri's heart skipped a beat. I asked my tutor. The door was pushed open. The prince lowered his head and mumbled an apology. Tutor, I apologize. I haven't answered all the questions yet. But this time, it wasn't his tutor, Crown Prince. Yuri, Johann. He looked up in surprise. Johann peeked in cheerfully. Have you studied enough for today? Yuri didn't understand the meaning in Johann's words. Johann formally announced. Now, I have a place I want to take your highness. He cleared his throat. Introducing Johann Carasini of the 5th Uvarian Royal Guard. With that, he scooped Yuri up and placed him on his shoulder. Wait. Yuri panicked. Wait. But Johann ignored him and formally announced, now, Crown Prince Yuri, it's time to depart. Emma, the maid, was too worried to speak. Opposite her, Yuri was wearing a birthday hat, but his face was devoid of joy. Dahlia also looked pensive. Why? The room was filled with tension. Why? Why does the atmosphere here seem so gloomy? A moment before, Johann had brought Yuri to where he needed to be. Several voices called out to him, "Yuri, Crown Prince Yuri." The Empress and the two maids were waiting. "Happy birthday." He stared in wonder at the sparkling scene before him, including the colorful fireworks falling through the air surrounding him. Before he could fully process it, the other maid placed a birthday hat on his head. Johann set him down on a chair. "Wait, this is..." "All right." Emma cleared her throat theatrically, ahem. A birthday cake with the number 6 on it was wheeled out. "This is your cake." Yuri gaped at it. Everyone clapped and wished him a happy birthday, while Emma patted her chest proudly. "Wow." Johann chimed in with praise. "This is a wonderful cake." Empress Dahlia stepped forward and softly asked, "Yuri, do you want to blow out the candles?" He took a deep breath and blew out the brightly burning number 6 candle. "Happy birthday, Crown Prince Yuri." Emma proudly declared, "I prepared this cake hoping Crown Prince Yuri would like it." The other maid then presented her gifts. "I prepared many toys for Crown Prince Yuri to play with." Next was Johann's turn. He presented his gift formally. "Ta-da! This is a special bouquet just for Crown Prince Yuri. Origami paper flowers." Yuri was startled and speechless, his hands clasped together as he looked at them. Dahlia also knelt beside him and softly called his name. "Yuri, happy 6th birthday." He started to tear up, looking up at the Empress. Finally, he stood frozen in place, making her worried. "Yuri." He remained silent and didn't respond. Maid Emma became anxious. She stepped forward to ask Yuri what was wrong. Could it be that Crown Prince Yuri didn't like whipped cream? Johann also panicked. "Did I go too fast, letting the Crown Prince sit on my shoulders? Oh my, why was I so quick at that moment?" Yuri, seeing their worry, hurriedly explained, and everyone misunderstood. He shakily shared his feelings. "Actually, this is the first time I've been celebrated for my birthday." Yuri trembled even more that "I haven't finished studying yet, and I made a mistake in my exercises." The birthday hat tumbled to the floor. "That's why I can't really enjoy the party." "Is it really okay?" Yuri fidgeted with his hands to lessen his guilt. Let me be this happy." Seeing him like this, Dahlia also felt heartbroken. "Yuri," a stuffed penguin appeared before his eyes. "You only made one mistake in your exercises? That's unbelievable." Yuri was astonished. "Your penguin." Dahlia showed him the blue penguin and shared her joy with him. "This is a gift from Mother to Yuri." But he hesitated, unsure whether to accept it. "Do you know? Penguins are animals that take great care of their families and those around them." Dahlia reiterated the efforts of those around them so that Yuri would grow to love everyone, to love him as a member of their family. "You are precious to everyone." He pictured 3 penguins, a close-knit family, right before his eyes. He kept murmuring the word family. She excitedly shared with Yuri. Mother made this penguin herself. She also wished him a happy birthday, hoping that Yuri would always live happily with those who loved him. Yuri reached out and took the penguin from his mother's hands. Will you accept this gift filled with love?" He hugged it tightly. "That I've received something so precious today. Thank you, Mother." He laughed more freely than ever before, no longer timid. "Yuri," she melted, gently hugging him. "If only today could last forever." He murmured. Her gaze towards Yuri became even more loving. Dahlia sat down and told him a story. "That reminds me of something. Penguins also work hard to build their nests, just like Yuri." He murmured in surprise. "Like me?" Emma, startled, cried out, affirming the prince's efforts. "What are you saying, Your Majesty?" "Crown Prince Yuri works harder than anyone in the world." Johann joined in, nodding in agreement with Emma. Ha ha ha. She's right. Crown Prince Yuri works harder than even me. But Yuri still fearfully hesitated. "No way." Dahlia also encouraged him from behind. "That you're right. Yuri works hard every day. So, the penguin is like your hard-working friend." Yuri's eyes became even brighter. He clutched it tightly in his arms. "Friend's name." They all looked at him, smiling brightly as if acknowledging everything he did, and Yuri wasn't lonely at all. He had his mother, his friends, and people who loved him. "Let's continue the party." Yuri tried a piece of cake, his face full of happiness. "Delicious." This also made Emma happy. Thank goodness. The 4 of them also formed a group to play cards. Yuri, on a roll, kept attacking Johann in the game. Johann's face turned pale. "Wait, Crown Prince Yuri." Dahlia playfully scared Yuri with a jack-in-the-box. That night, he returned to his bedroom, still buzzing about his birthday. Yuri clutched the gift the Empress had made herself. "Oh my, is it a Swiss roll again?" Dahlia was glad he liked it. It seemed like the boy was dreaming of cakes like Swiss rolls. She gently pulled the blanket over him so he wouldn't catch a cold. After that, she slowly left the room. Just as she closed the door, her finger was pricked while sewing the penguin. She cried out softly. Ouch. A wound from making Mr. Penguin. I completely forgot about that, she murmured. It's been a while since I've used a needle and thread. Since that time. A month after their wedding, at the dining table, Claude gently asked Dahlia, "What did you do today?" She thought for a moment and replied, "I had language lessons in the morning and embroidery class. In the afternoon." He nodded in acknowledgement. "I understand." She muttered, "We have the same conversation every month." But, under the table, she clenched her handkerchief tightly. "Today I will try to take another step." Seeing nothing else, Claude excused himself. "Well, I'll return to my room." Dahlia hurriedly stopped him. "Please wait a moment, Your Majesty." Claude glanced back at her. She slowly said to him, "Before you praised my embroidery." Dahlia held out the handkerchief she had meticulously made. "So this time, I made you a handkerchief. Will you accept it?" "I cannot accept it." The words were like a bolt of lightning to Dahlia. Claude's voice grew colder, reminding her to know her place. "I have no intention of accepting such things. And you don't need to waste your time doing such things." At that moment, she felt her heart sink, her hands slowly dropping. How heartbreaking. Why doesn't His Majesty understand the meaning behind this embroidered handkerchief? Dahlia couldn't hold back her tears. "So then, do you also think that eating with me is a waste of time?" After that day, I continued to embroider. I asked myself, what should I make for Yuri? Suddenly, Dahlia looked up. Looming before her was the figure of His Majesty. Her mood immediately plummeted. Why am I seeing His Majesty's face now? This is terrible. Claude also noticed that she was turning to leave. He stepped in front of her. Dahlia dejectedly asked, "Why are you here?" Claude suddenly picked her up. She stared at His Majesty in alarm. Dahlia looked at Claude in astonishment as he calmly carried her away. She exclaimed, "What are you doing all of a sudden?" Claude suddenly brought his face close to hers. This puzzled Dahlia. What was His Majesty planning to do now? He checked her and then looked up, murmuring, "Just as I suspected, you're sick." Claude even put his hand on her forehead to check her temperature. He's never done anything like this before. He slowly placed her on the bed. Dahlia, flushed and breathless, lay on the bed, listening to him question her. "Why are you staying up so late?" Claude asked, his face grim. Dahlia unconsciously clenched her hand. With the glory festival coming up, getting sick now would be a real nuisance. A half-empty teapot sat on the table. Dahlia sat up, holding a warm cup of tea. "It's been a while since I last used a needle and stayed up this late. I seem to be getting tired." He noticed her injured finger and asked, "A needle? Why are you wasting your time on such a meaningless thing?" She was so angry she didn't know what to say to "You're asking me why." She swallowed her anger and replied bluntly, "Today is my son's birthday." Claude's eyes softened as he looked down. "Is remembering Yuri's birthday also meaningless to you?" She placed the warm teacup on the table and turned to him. "I'll recover before the glory festival. I apologize for bothering you while you're busy." She muttered, "Want to know the real reason for Claude's visit? So, what did you want to talk about?" He was searching for something inside his coat as Dahlia glanced over expectantly. Finally, he did nothing but push back his chair and stand. Without a word of goodbye, he quickly left the room. Speechless, Dahlia called out, "Did you need something?" He shook his head and, "Oh, we'll talk later." "No, I don't want to wait like before. I want to hear it now." He sighed and turned back. "It's about the Empress's rights. Have you read my reply?" Dahlia stared at him, dumbfounded. He looked at her with a large question mark on his face. "That I should have given it to Johann." Come to think of it, at the end of the banquet, Johann suddenly grabbed my hand and said something completely out of the blue, then ran off. "Yes, I'll deliver it carefully." Claude realized she hadn't read the letter. "If you haven't read it, I'll tell you now. The Empress's rights will be returned to you as you wished." Dahlia was stunned. Claude continued, "However, I will still choose the tutor for the prince. Do you have any objections?" But his gaze and tone made her tremble. She clutched her skirt. "I also want the educational rights returned. Have you forgotten what happened with Lady Yandex?" But Claude didn't trust her. "How can you be sure the tutor you choose will be trustworthy? There's a chance they could be a spy from Duke Chager's house." He added a warning. "If you retain the educational rights, all the malice surrounding this country will immediately be directed at you. A person who only recently was still a young girl. You won't be able to cope with that malice." Dahlia gripped her skirt tighter, fear rising. "I understand what he's saying. The Duke, having nominated his own son as the next emperor, will likely try to sabotage Yuri by exploiting this loophole. Even so, in my previous life, Yuri solidified his position as the successor. This could only happen because Emperor Claude's presence kept everyone in fear. But Dahlia was also afraid that if she were given the educational rights, it it would seem like His Majesty had abandoned Yuri. However, simply accepting that meant repeating the same thing. She didn't want that painful past to happen again. Seeing her trembling, Claude stopped the conversation. Let's end today's conversation here. Dahlia immediately retorted, why? And urged him to stay and talk more. The conversation isn't over yet. Her face grew redder and her breathing became heavier. Claude held his head, asking, what can you do if you get a fever from overworking yourself? Dahlia finally stood firm with her decision. I will decide on the prince's tutor. I have no intention of giving in. He turned around to look at her. Before this, it seems like you only saw Yuri from the perspective of an emperor. She expressed her opinion in front of His Majesty for the first time. What are you saying? But Dahlia ignored his threatening words. As a father, have you ever truly looked at Yuri? Claude frowned, retorting, the prince is the next emperor. He will be responsible for this country. I cannot raise Yuri to be someone who easily reveals his weaknesses. She gave a sorrowful smile, saying in other words, you married me for political reasons, and now you're raising Yuri for the benefit of the country, right? He clenched his fists, unexpected that she would so readily lay everything bare like that. That's enough. He restrained his anger and left the room. Dahlia sighed heavily. You didn't deny it. To you, Yuri is just a tool to protect the country. There's no love in this marriage. And giving birth to Yuri was simply an obligation as the empress. Even though I knew all of this from the beginning. Even then, she glanced towards the door. Why did you have that expression? There was one thing she was still curious about. He returned to his room. On the table was a framed photo of a happy family of 3. It seems, he muttered, things won't go smoothly. Even now, I still clearly remember that day. The scene of the chaotic war unfolded. At that time, Claude was just a crying child, sobbing. He was hugging his brother's body, wailing in the rain. Brother! He blamed himself. If only I had been stronger then. Stop! Then finally screamed, stop it! Could I have prevented it from happening? A sudden shout rang out. Claude! Then he carried him away from the dying body of his brother. What are you doing? Let me go. My brother is still. But he paid no attention to Claude's screaming. It's too dangerous here. This way. Brother, Claude continued to cry out, finally tearfully accepting his fate. And oh, brother. He grew further and further away from his brother, who now lay lifeless on the ground, having saved him. Brother, Your Majesty, the scene 3 months after their marriage resurfaced. Will you accept this? That handkerchief became a horrifying memory for him. Claude bluntly refused Dahlia's kindness. I can't accept it. The sun reached its peak. Yuri called out in astonishment. Father, thank you for spending time with me today. I would like your guidance. Claude and Johann appeared at Yuri's training grounds. Emma stood observing with the prince's penguin. Seeing Yuri training diligently to earn his father's recognition, Claude's expression became complex with a flurry of thoughts. Johann glanced at His Majesty and chuckled inwardly. Why would someone so dedicated to work suddenly make time for Prince Yuri? Haha. Claude glared at him intensely. Johann then boasted to His Majesty, recently, the prince's swordsmanship has improved greatly. He said he wants to start practicing with real swords as soon as possible, and he's only 6 years old. It's impressive. Claude frowned, reminding Johann, who was dawdling, you should learn from him. Johann felt a pang of guilt. However, Claude also reminded Johann to pay special attention to Yuri. Impatience will cloud one's judgment and create openings, he sternly instructed. Never let the prince forget that. Johann nodded obediently. Yes, I will certainly convey that to the prince. Meanwhile, Yuri's strength began to wane. Finally, the wooden sword slipped from his grasp, flying towards Emma, the maid, who couldn't dodge in time. The 2 men behind them watched in astonishment as Yuri cried out and ran towards her. Be careful, Emma. Emma's hand was red, but she smiled and said, Prince Yuri, I'm fine. It's not a big deal. Yuri trembled. I apologize. Claude angrily scolded. What were you thinking while training? Yuri trembled and turned back, his hands clasped together in panic. Well, he stammered, as since father was watching. Yuri couldn't bring himself to finish his sentence. Claude continued to reprimand him. If that were a real sword, you could have killed her. A terrifying image flashed before Yuri's eyes. He panicked. I'm truly sorry. Yuri was drenched in cold sweat, trembling with fear. Johann stepped forward to comfort him, breaking the tense atmosphere. It's all right, she's fine, Prince Yuri. After all, failure is the mother of success. Besides, if it's treated quickly in the infirmary, it will heal right away. He then pulled Emma away, leaving father and son alone. Well, we'll be going now. Startled by the sudden pull, Emma stammered. Standing before his father, Yuri continued to tremble. Finally, he mustered the courage to admit his fault. I hurt Emma. Claude saw a reflection of his younger self in Yuri. He gently advised him, don't forget that feeling, the fear of losing someone. It will make you stronger. Yuri stopped crying and looked up at his father. Yes, father. Finally, he bowed his head and apologized. I'm truly sorry. Rain began to fall, light at first, then increasingly heavy. That's enough for today. Go back to your room. Yuri nodded farewell to his father and left. Yes, father. Watching Yuri's retreating figure, Claude finally allowed himself to feel his own emotions. He remembered standing frozen before his brother's coffin, also in the rain. The shouts grew more intense. Claude, why did you survive? You are cursed. Tears and rain mingled as one. Claude felt as if it were only yesterday. After his emotions subsided, he returned to his room. On the table was a picture of a cozy family of 3. He stared intently at the photo in his hand. Dahlia's words from yesterday had truly touched his heart. You married me for political reasons, and now you're sending Yuri away for the good of the country, right? Claude went to Dahlia's room and knocked. Your Majesty, are you in there? There was no sound from inside. He frowned suspiciously. Isn't she in there? 3 maids rushed towards Claude. Your Majesty, is something the matter? Where is the Empress? The 3 maids looked at each other and nodded. If you're asking about Her Majesty, she went out this morning. A clap of thunder split the sky. He frowned and asked, in this rain? He lowered himself slightly and instructed, prepare the carriage. I'll go get her. Claude arrived at a shop on the outskirts of the city. Wearing a black cloak, he glanced inside with a highly alert expression. At that moment, Dahlia was also inside, looking out. Who is it? His eyes widened in surprise as he looked at the person in front of him. She also startled, her eyes widening as she looked at Claude. Your Majesty. Dahlia opened the door, saw him outside, and in disbelief called out, Your Majesty. He wore a black coat that covered him completely. She asked him, why are you here? She wondered, really, why are so many people coming today? Peter saw her open the door again and asked, who is it this time? Empress Dahlia? Seeing the figure outside, he immediately greeted Claude. He then thought back to earlier. Claude took her hand and said, please excuse my abruptness. Seeing him take her hand, she quickly said, wait a moment, Your Majesty. We haven't finished our greetings yet. He looked puzzled. Greetings? Peter said, it's all right, don't worry, Empress Dahlia. I hate breaking promises more than anything. He added, that's why I just relax and wait. He said, now go home. Crown Prince Yuri is surely waiting for you. She replied cheerfully, thank you, Heater. She smiled and waved as she walked away. Heater's and Claude's eyes met. Heater looked away. Claude looked at him with a cold gaze. He said, I appreciate your help. The 2 left in the carriage. Heater stood at the door, watching them leave. In the past, the young Claude had questioned him, why did you help me? Why did you abandon my father? He had declared, I never want to see your face again. Peter smiled faintly and said, it seems I can help you once more. Dahlia sat in the carriage. During the East-West War, 30 years ago, the hero who led the Lavalian Empire to victory was the former commander of the Imperial Legion, Hiderala. He had flatly refused. How impressive. I won't accept any requests from the Imperial family. Having been rejected, he even sent her away to, I have nothing to say. Leave. Dahlia thought to herself, he's really stubborn. Ah, well, I'm glad everything worked out. She felt, the shield he creates will surely protect Yuri in the future. She wore a deeply thoughtful expression. She glanced at the person sitting next to her and wondered, was it really necessary to sit so close? This carriage is already cramped. He suddenly spoke. Why did you meet with Heater? She answered honestly, I asked him to make a shield for Yuri for the Glory Festival. She added, the value of the sword and shield we give to Yuri is to link the prestige of the Imperial family with him. Your Majesty understands this best, don't you? Claude said, however, he's known to be quite the difficult and stubborn man. Dahlia had to agree that a stubbornness as solid as a fortress that even a beast's fangs can't pierce. The rumors may be true, yes, although he is a good person. In fact, she added with a smile, however, I believe he is a respectable craftsman who takes pride in his work. Hearing this, he smirked, yes, that's so. She wondered to herself, Your Majesty, why did you even come all this way? He's never shown any interest in me before. He turned away, irritating her. How troublesome. She sighed. He only answers when he wants to and stays silent when he doesn't. I really can't understand him. He informed her Lady Andalex is no longer here, so he looked at her and offered a key. The key to the door isn't needed anymore, but it's better if you keep it. She accepted the key, staring at it, wondering, did he come all this way just to give me this? The coachman announced, "We've arrived, your majesties." Since Lady Andalex left the palace, that door hasn't been locked. So, this key isn't needed anymore either. He stepped down before her and offered his hand. Seeing her hesitate, he asked, "What's wrong?" She took his hand and slowly stepped down from the carriage. "Nothing." They walked side by side. Dahlia felt puzzled. What is he thinking? Johann said cheerfully, "Oh my, we're finally here. The Imperial Glory Festival." He was incredibly excited. Today is an important day because we can finally introduce Prince Yuri to everyone. Beyond this door, many people are waiting for Prince Yuri. Hearing this made Yuri feel apprehensive. Emma angrily called out, "Lieutenant Karo-sen." She said, "Please refrain from making statements that could worry Prince Yuri." He looked frightened at I apologize. A gentle voice called, "Yuri." He replied, "Mother." Looking at his attire, she praised, "You look wonderful. It suits you very well." Yuri replied, "Thank you very much, Mother." He spoke hesitantly, "Mother, Yuri looked down and said slowly, "The Glory Festival, if it doesn't go well. If that happens." She laughed warmly, comforting him, "We just need to pull ourselves together and try again." He brightened, "Yes." She asked, "I heard you accidentally hit Emma with a wooden sword during practice." Yuri answered, "Yes." She asked him, "How did you feel at that time?" He replied, "I felt very sorry for Emma." Hearing this, Emma held up her arm and smiled brightly. Dahlia comforted him. "Yuri, look at Emma's face." "Prince Yuri, I'm completely fine now." He hesitated, but Emma, comforted him. "If your highness is sad, then I can't be happy either. So please don't be sad anymore." She continued, "Of course, there are things you need to reflect on and learn from your mistakes." She affirmed, "But it's not the end of anything. There will certainly be other opportunities to try again." Dahlia looked at him with loving eyes. "Moreover, no one is perfect from the start. We all grow from experiencing failures and challenges. So, let's work hard together." He breathed a sigh of relief. "Yes, Mother." Cloud arrived and said, "It's time to get ready." Yuri resolved himself and firmly replied, "Yes." He seemed satisfied. A voice echoed through the hall announcing, "The Emperor, Empress, and Crown Prince are entering." The three of them entered together. Seeing their appearance, the surrounding people buzzed with excitement. They're finally going to introduce His Highness, the Crown Prince? How exciting! The announcer declared, "The Emperor and Empress and Crown Prince are about to appear. Everyone, please anticipate their arrival." Looking at Yuri's demeanor, people exclaimed, "What an impressive young nobleman. The Crown Prince looks just like His Majesty the Emperor." People also gossiped about Dahlia. Does the Crown Prince's hair resemble the Empress's hair color? It's a shame. It seems like dressing neatly can make you more attractive and noticeable. The three of them proceeded forward amidst the attention and admiration of the crowd. Cloud walked ahead silently. He glanced at Yuri. Yuri placed his hand on his chest and declared clearly, "Everyone, thank you for gathering here today. Your presence is truly important. Please enjoy yourselves." Finishing his words, he bowed respectfully. Everyone responded in unison, "Crown Prince, happy birthday." He sighed in relief and said, "Thank you." Dahlia, observing his reaction, thought, "I see you're nervous, but everything will be all right." She affirmed, "I'm certain many believe you are worthy of carrying the future of the Empire." He looked towards her, then gave a relaxed smile. All right." She encouraged him, "Just keep going like this." He replied, "Yes, Mother." The steward announced, "Your Majesty, Cloud, it's time to prepare." A voice rang out, causing both Dahlia and Yuri to freeze. The star of Yulavedia, Strangler, entered with his son and said, "Greetings, Your Highness." Yuri replied, "Thank you." Strangler smiled and said, "It's an honor to witness the Crown Prince's debut. I remember when my son, Lucas, had his first social debut 2 years ago. Actually, I feel a bit embarrassed to say that he's simply grown taller since then." His son beside him reminded him, "Father." Hearing this, Strangler quickly said, apologies." He smirked and said, "My apologies, Your Highness." Yuri replied, "No, it's..." Lucas called out, "Father." Then he began boasting about his own achievements. "When I was 5, I finally managed to hold a sword. Thinking back on it now, I still have to laugh. If I were a member of the royal family, I should have been able to hold a real sword at the age of 5. He even frantically gestured and declared loudly, "Of course, Your Highness." His Highness, the Crown Prince, must have started practicing with a real sword now, hasn't he? Seeing his son's actions, Strangler sneered, "Lucas, His Highness the Crown Prince will be in trouble." He added, I apologize, Your Majesty, and I heard that Lady Odell left the castle. I thought perhaps you had found a better teacher than her. Hearing this, Dahlia frowned. Seeing her reaction, he continued more enthusiastically. Could you perhaps introduce my son to her? She said the child. Dahlia laughed loudly and said, the child should choose the teacher most suitable for him. Implied meaning, your education is not worth comparing to Yuri's. He smirked. He replied, you're right. Implied meaning, a girl's education isn't something to be concerned about. He bowed and added, I hope that the glorious royal festival concludes smoothly. She replied with a smile, you needn't worry about that. Duke Strangler. The father and son quickly left. Yuri looked towards them. He was performing the sword receiving ceremony. She stood outside, breathing a sigh of relief. Thank goodness the sword has been passed down safely. Yuri, she thought. Now it's my turn to give the shield to Yuri, based on Duke Strangler's actions just now. A guard entered and said, Your Majesty, I apologize, but someone has stolen the shield. Emma gasped, what? Dahlia said nothing, only thinking, I knew it. There was an uproar. Dahlia stood to the side, thinking, even now, I clearly remember Duke Strangler buying up all the shields, making it very difficult to acquire one. I finally ordered shields for Yuri from a neighboring country, but they were stolen right before crossing the river. She softly said, so there's no shield? She looked outside worriedly. What should I do now? Andalex entered, holding a shield, and said, Your Majesty, please use this. Seeing it, she refused in surprise this. I can't give this to Yuri. Andalex reminded her. Yes, if the crown prince isn't acknowledged by the empress, he might be ridiculed by everyone. So, Andalex asked, do you have any other choice? She looked at Dahlia and said, Your recklessness has ruined the future of the crown prince. Dahlia thought for a moment, her eyelashes wet with tears. Then an even greater distance will be created between Yuri and me. She clenched her fists, thinking the culprit still hasn't been found, and the fact that it was stolen has also been covered up. She said, but this time, seeing her distress, Emma said, I will find him. Dahlia stopped her, don't worry, I'm fine. Emma still worried, but when Cloud had finished presenting, Dahlia smiled and said, I'm going. Emma called out, Your Majesty. He entered just as she was leaving. Seeing her, he wondered, what is she going to do? The Empress walked out. Her hands were empty, not holding a shield, which caught everyone's attention. What's going on? They murmured. Why doesn't the Empress have anything? Could it be that the Empress doesn't cherish the prince? Yuri was also stunned. He thought to himself, Mother, why? She touched his cheek as she spoke. My dear Yuri, everything will be all right. Trust me. Footsteps se approached. No, I apologize for being late. Hader sighed and said, It's been a long time since I've worn such formal attire. I arrived just in time. She saw his appearance and said, We've been expecting you. She introduced him, our nation's great hero, Hader Aloha Sorajima. All the big-eared, influential nobles present at today's banquet hall were astonished by Hader's appearance. That man, is he the hero of the East and West? Sir Hader? Why is he here? Duke Strangler sneered contemptuously, his demeanor appearing quite arrogant. His young son, Lucas, couldn't remain as composed as his father. Hader quickly entered the main hall and raised his voice in greeting. Greetings to the moon of Eulaveria, the noble empress. And greetings to the shining star of Eulaveria, his highness the crown prince. I, Hader Aloha, as a symbol of my loyalty to the crown prince, present this shield to you. Seeing the brilliant and powerful treasure brought by Hader himself, Yuri was naturally surprised, his eyes lighting up. Dahlia approached Hader and took the magnificent shield. She quickly told Yuri, before the watchful eyes of so many nobles, Your Majesty gives the crown prince the shield that has been passed down through generations of the royal family. And the Empress gives the crown prince the shield of glory crafted by a hero. What a memorable moment. Yuri kept looking at Hader with unconcealed admiration. He silently watched Hader gradually disappear. Hader was also pleased to have completed the task entrusted to him by Dahlia. Dahlia cherished the shield in her hands, thinking to herself, This shield will protect my child's future with great power. May my beloved Yuri grow up to shine brightly. She smiled happily and gently said to Yuri, Here, Yuri, take it. He seemed truly more mature after receiving both meaningful gifts from his father and mother. Cloud, inside, smiled slightly after seeing that all worries had been resolved. After all the official business was concluded, the crowded banquet hall began to freely dance. Duke Strangler turned away with unconcealed annoyance on his face. That brat's solemnity is frightening. To be recognized as a hero, Yuliveria's future seems brighter. He quickly left while the crowd was still enjoying the festivities. However, not everyone was engrossed in the wonderful melody. Someone had been observing him this whole time. That you're leaving quite early, aren't you? Duke Strangler turned sharply to look at the person with a look of displeasure. The man was none other than His Majesty, Emperor Cloud. He didn't show any deference to the Duke and coldly asked, "Is something troubling you?" Of course, when His Majesty spoke, Duke Strangler couldn't continue to confront him with an improper attitude. His tone suddenly became more conciliatory. "What makes you think that, Your Majesty? I am overjoyed to see the Crown Prince so happy. It's wonderful." After Duke Strangler's words, Cloud's expression became more serious than before, and he looked at him with displeasure. Duke Strangler suddenly realized he couldn't win against Cloud, so he amended his words to provoke him. "Yes, the air of a fearsome majesty. I never thought the Crown Prince would be recognized as a hero. How touching." Cloud spoke, his voice cold and emotionless. "Well, at least I'm not a low-born thief." Duke Strangler put on a thick-skinned smile, as if nothing had happened. "I don't understand what you're saying, Your Majesty. I apologize, but I have some matters to attend to. My son will likely stay, so please treat him well." Having said all that was necessary, he quickly left. Cloud watched Strangler's retreating figure, his face still devoid of emotion. Just then, two noble women called out to him, "Your Majesty." But Cloud quickly cut them off another time. In a high place bathed in the late afternoon sun, Dahlia stood against the wind. She let her body completely relax. "Phew. I'm certain Duke Strangler stole the shield, but I hope there's some evidence left behind. I don't think he's the type to easily get away with it. But I'm truly glad my dear Yuri has his own shield now." Yuri's clear voice suddenly called out, causing her to look towards the door. "Mother!" Dahlia's eyes lit up as soon as she saw her son at the door. She happily called his name Yuri. "You look so handsome in that outfit. It suits you so well." Yuri, having received praise from his beloved mother, felt elated. "Really? Emma made me wear it." He vividly described Emma's expression at the time. She was overjoyed to see the prince wearing the outfit. "That I chose this outfit for His Highness." Yuri seemed to have come because he had something to tell Dahlia, mother, about earlier. He closed his eyes and bowed deeply. "Thank you for giving me such a beautiful shield." Dahlia smiled, mimicking his bow. "Thank you too, Yuri. You're so good for accepting it. I'm very happy." The afternoon light seemed to brighten, enveloping the entire space. Yuri was momentarily stunned by Dahlia's smile. He hesitantly spoke, "I've been thinking. To become a great crown prince who can hold the shield that Mother and Lord Hader gave me today, I will study even harder." Dahlia seemed surprised by her son's words. "It was always a matter of daily study and training that—" "Oh, Yuri, it's all right. You will definitely become a great crown prince." Yuri, praised to the point of embarrassment, blushed and stammered. "Anyway, I always feel warm when I talk to you, Mother." He looked around before hesitantly asking, "So, Yuri leaned close to Dahlia's ear and whispered, "Are you a witch?" But Dahlia, instead of being angry, laughed with delight at her son's innocent question. "That's right. As a reward for all of Yuri's efforts today, should I cast a spell on you?" She quickly picked Yuri up and smiled, pointing to a beautiful spot before them. Yuri was utterly astonished. Before him lay a field of vibrant flowers, their colors blazing brilliantly in the late afternoon sun, creating a remarkably romantic scene. Dahlia asked her son, "Isn't it beautiful? This magic will warm your heart. Yuri, you could do this magic too. It happens when your heart is joyful, when you feel happy." Dahlia playfully winked at him. "Talking with you makes me feel warm and comfortable." Hearing this, Yuri brightened considerably. "Really? You too, Mother?" He suddenly turned his head to look out at the distant sea of flowers at the horizon, where the crimson sun was setting. Dahlia, understanding her son's intention, quickly set him down. "Oh, you think we should head back now? The banquet is about to begin." However, Yuri looked at her, suddenly fumbling and awkward. Dahlia turned back to look at her son. Little Yuri recalled his mother's gentle words. "Yuri, you can tell me anything. It's okay." Talking to Yuri makes me feel comfortable. He mustered all his courage to speak. I just learned how to dance, and you're really good at it. So would you? Would you like to dance with me? Yuri's sudden invitation left Dahlia utterly astonished. She was so shocked, she covered her mouth to stifle a cry of joy. Was Yuri sharing his feelings with her for the first time? She took his invitation very seriously. Taking Yuri's small hand, Dahlia replied, of course. Mother and son looked at each other and smiled brightly, truly happy. Dahlia told Yuri, I'll change into a beautiful dress before we dance. I'll be right back. Will you wait for me? Without hesitation, Yuri smiled and replied, okay. Professional musicians began to play melodious tunes, and nobles took each other's hands, dancing throughout the banquet hall. Yuri obediently waited to the side, as he had promised. His heart pounded with the joy from earlier. Mother isn't finished yet. Suddenly, someone's unpleasant voice rang out. Oh, well. Look who's here. Isn't that His Highness, the Crown Prince? It was Lucas. Yuri's expression changed the moment he appeared, his anxiety impossible to hide. Lucas, Yuri uttered. Lucas, clearly enjoying sowing fear, told Yuri, can you come outside and talk to me for a moment? There's something you should hear. Yuri was briefly silent, seemingly considering this. Finally, he followed Lucas outside. His actions quickly caught Claw's attention. He watched the direction Lucas and Yuri went. Little Yuri allowed himself to be led wherever Lucas pulled him. After a moment, he released Yuri's hand. Lucas turned his back to Yuri, seemingly furious. His tone was harsher than before. You've been acknowledged by a hero. Yuri was momentarily confused. What? Lucas, his face red with anger, spun around and shouted at Yuri. Sir Hader announced that he won't be taking on any more apprentices. He even said that as long as he lives, he'll only do repair work. Claw, approaching, overheard this. He's never made a shield for anyone before, but made one for someone like you. Claw glanced over and saw his son's timid appearance, even though he wasn't at fault. Lucas was extremely smug when he saw Yuri like that. In the end, even a hero can't resist the Empire. Yuri flinched. He wanted to say something that Lucas clearly didn't believe he would object. What? Yuri quickly told him, Sir Hader is definitely not that kind of person. However, very quickly after that, Lucas angrily shouted and cut him off. Don't interrupt me. Lucas's shout made the atmosphere fall silent. Yuri was also startled. He heard Lucas say, I should have been the first one to be recognized by a hero. If he didn't exist, then maybe that shield and the crown prince's throne would belong to me. It's all your fault. You shouldn't have been born. Yuri was stunned by his words. And finally, he just let out an oh. Claw, just behind the wall, couldn't bear to hear anymore. He quickly wanted to step out and intervene for his son. Then he heard Yuri say, I also. His footsteps stopped immediately. Yuri's words to Lucas made him unable to move. I also feel that way. Claw's expression turned serious, his eyes darkening. He heard Yuri tell his friend, Lucas, you're taller than me, stronger than me, smarter than me. I always thought that being the son of a duke, it would be easy to remember everything the first time. Compared to you, Lucas, I know but just now when you held my hand, I saw your hand was injured. Lucas recoiled in surprise. Huh? What are you talking about? His question made Yuri realize he had gone off topic slightly. However, Yuri still decided to continue. There are a lot of injuries on your hands. You must have trained very hard. I think you're really cool. Lucas, suddenly being praised like that, and by someone he disliked no less. The temperature on Lucas's face rose considerably. He yelled, as if wanting to bite Yuri's head off. Even if you say that, I'm not going to be happy. Yuri was startled by the unreasonable outburst. Oh, sorry. Lucas calmed down from his previous fury, still a little embarrassed to address this with Yuri. You shouldn't be grateful for that. You're such an idiot. Yuri still didn't understand what he was saying, his eyes sparkling as he looked at Lucas. Finally, Lucas clicked his tongue. TC, if my father allows it, I'll come and watch your sword practice. Yuri said to thank you. But before he could finish, Lucas had already walked away arrogantly. Yuri didn't resent Lucas's rudeness or how he treated him. He just felt he needed to do something for his future. Being strong like Lucas was a good thing. Suddenly, Claw appeared behind him and called his name, Yuri. He cried out in surprise when he saw who it was. Father, I'm really sorry for going out without permission. He didn't get to finish his sentence as he was silenced by Claw's gentle head pat. Yuri looked up innocently into Claude's eyes, but Claude offered no explanation for his action, simply turning to leave that we should go in. The dance is about to begin. Yuri replied, Yes, father. He paused. Father, isn't mother ready yet? Claude stopped and turned back to Yuri. What's wrong? wrong? Yuri answered honestly. Mother told me to wait for her while she changed into a different outfit. Seeing his son's awkwardness, Claude was at a loss for words. Yuri told him, I'll go find Mother. Claude told his son, it's all right, I'll go find your mother. Yuri still seemed a little worried, but was interrupted by Emma's call. Crown Prince Yuri. Claude told him, just go into the main hall. He then quickly left to find Dahlia. Yuri finally reacted, yes, thank you very much, father. Meanwhile, in the dressing room, Dahlia was getting ready to go out and look for Yuri. Phew, just one last button. She sighed wearily. It's so difficult to change without a maid. Emma is currently attending to Crown Prince Yuri. Dahlia frowned thoughtfully. She must be very busy. She peered towards the door, looking for assistance. I wonder if there are any other servants out there. Just as she opened the door, a familiar figure appeared from the outside. Dahlia was utterly astonished. Claude seemed equally surprised. Dahlia pushed the door open further, and their eyes met. They froze for 5 seconds. Suddenly, the atmosphere became awkward, and they quickly averted their gazes. Dahlia stammered, I apologize for letting you see this. Claude, equally embarrassed, responded, no, I'm the one who should apologize. She quickly replied, no, I was being careless. Dahlia then hurriedly closed the door, leaving Claude alone outside. Seeing her leave, Claude breathed a sigh of relief. Yuri is worried because you haven't arrived yet. Dahlia slumped against the door, her face buried in her hands, mortified. Yes, I'll be right there. Dahlia prepared herself, and Claude softly replied, all right, I'll tell Yuri. After Claude left and had walked a short distance away, Dahlia peeked cautiously from behind the door. She called out softly, wait a moment. She nervously asked, if you don't mind, could you help me with this button? Dahlia offered an excuse. I don't want Yuri to wait too long. Her request struck Claude like lightning, stopping him in his tracks. But he then helped her as requested. Claude quietly asked, isn't your maid here? Dahlia replied, yes, you're often away at war, so you may not know, but Dahlia sadly confessed, since getting married, I've never had maid. By then, Claude had finished fastening her dress. Hearing that she had no maid, Claude was bewildered. What? You're the Empress. You should have at least one maid for yourself. Dahlia sighed. That it seems His Majesty knows nothing. He fell silent. Finished, Dahlia bowed her head in farewell. Thank you for your help, Your Majesty. I must go now. Watching her leave, anger stirred within him, and he unconsciously clenched his fists. But Dahlia wasn't feeling much better. Her mood had plummeted into despair. She thought to herself despondently, even I didn't realize I still didn't have a maid. Just the daughter of a baron, I have no voice in the imperial family, so I never thought I would have a maid of my own. Dahlia gestured for the butler to open the door. She thought to herself, however, I can't be so hesitant. Like His Majesty said, I should have at least one servant by my side. The banquet hall doors opened, and the atmosphere grew stagnant. They all directed unpleasant looks at her, but they immediately returned their attention to their own conversations. Dahlia quietly entered the banquet hall. Immediately afterward, a dazzling light appeared for the main character. It was Claude. From the moment he appeared, praises poured down upon him. Hail the son of Uvarian, Your Majesty, we await you. Hearing his name, Dahlia unconsciously looked back, but then she quickly went to find Yuri. From afar, little Yuri came running. He called out loudly, Mother! Hearing her son's voice, Dahlia happily turned around. Yuri, I'm sorry I'm late. Then, mother and son excitedly embraced each other, looking very happy. At this moment, the image of Dahlia and her son fell into Claude's blue eyes. Sweat suddenly appeared on his face, his expression unsmiling. Despite the gazes from around them, Dahlia happily danced with Yuri. Looking at her son's adorably serious face, Dahlia felt a surge of amusement. This height difference is quite difficult for Yuri. I'll lead the dance. Afraid his mother was worried, the understanding Yuri quickly comforted her. I always trust you, mother. His words startled Dahlia. What? At this moment, Yuri looked even more mature. He confidently declared, that's why today I will lead. Seeing her son's mature demeanor gave Dahlia a sense of accomplishment. She happily agreed. All right, I'm counting on you. Then, mother and son began their dance. She smiled softly and said, my adorable little prince. The music started, and everyone in the banquet hall began their introductory steps. Dahlia, looking at Yuri's small figure, felt a pang of emotion. She remembered Yuri as a baby in diapers. Dahlia murmured, "You were so small back then. But now, you've grown so much without me by your side. A small part of me feels lonely thinking about that." Looking into Yuri's eyes, she couldn't help but feel proud. The two of them blended into the cheerful atmosphere of the music. Enjoying these happy moments, Dahlia thought to herself, "I'm so happy to see you grow up every day." Dahlia promised, "Let's dance again next time." Yuri nodded in agreement. Yes. The music ended, and they both bowed. They began to walk away. Dahlia excitedly said, "You danced so well. When did you practice?" Yuri mumbled, I think it was around my birthday." As he said this, Yuri's face turned as red as a ripe tomato. He swore, "Emma was my dance partner." Dahlia, learning who her son's dance partner was, exclaimed in surprise. "Oh," Dahlia happily said, "thank you. This dance will be a wonderful memory, Yuri, like a reward after the Glory Festival." Then, she excitedly asked, "Do you want to visit the flower garden tomorrow?" Yuri excitedly replied, "Yes, I'd love to." Hearing his mother suggest visiting the flower garden surprised him. Yuri had thought, did mother remember her promise from back then? Dahlia quickly explained, "How could I forget? It was a promise to my precious Yuri." Learning that his mother still remembered, Yuri cheered, "Great." A moment later, Dahlia peeked her head from behind the door. Looking at Yuri, who had fallen asleep and was mumbling in his sleep, "Zuzu, let's dance." She stood beside him and smiled unconsciously that you've worked very hard today. Then she closed the door. Dahlia softly said, "Go and rest." The servant beside her bowed their head and replied, "Yes, Your Majesty." Only now did she feel the fatigue in her body after a busy day. Dahlia stretched, thinking to herself, "I should rest a bit too, because tomorrow I'm going out with Yuri." Claude, hearing the noise, turned around. Recognizing her, he quickly approached. "Your Majesty." Dahlia curtsied. "Thank you for today. I'm going back to my room. Your Majesty should rest as well." Claude hesitated. "I will now." But his outstretched hand stopped in midair. But he immediately grasped her hand and pulled her closer. Startled by his sudden grip, Dahlia gasped. His expression changed, looking very urgent. Claude questioned, "Why didn't I know about those things?" Dahlia stammered, "Your Majesty." She quickly changed the subject to distract him. "The royal festival is over, Your Majesty. Aren't you leaving tomorrow? You should rest." Seeing her evasiveness, Claude asked irritably, "Why are you so foolish? You clearly understood what I said." Dahlia froze. The atmosphere became silent. Claude softly said that images of them flashed through her mind, making her shudder. Dahlia quickly interrupted. "What are you talking about, Your Majesty? That's just an everyday occurrence for me." Then she resolutely pulled her hand from his. Her firm rejection made him clench his teeth in frustration. Claude asked, "What about the necklace?" "The necklace I gave you before. If they knew I gave it to you, they might have been more cautious." "The blue necklace, set with a noble royal diamond." Dahlia said indifferently, "I sold it. I sold it." The fragile remaining connection between them was also sold by her. Claude let out a disappointed groan. TSK. Seeing his disappointment, Dahlia softly said, "I apologize for selling it without Your Majesty's permission. However, I can't call this place mine, and the money doesn't belong to me either. Could I ask for Your Majesty's necklace? I want to sell it." Her words deepened the sadness on his face, his gaze unconsciously drifting to the floor. But it stopped at her chest, where a necklace rested. Dahlia didn't bother informing him beforehand. "Tomorrow, I promised Yuri we'd go to the flower garden." Feeling sidelined, he clenched his fist, punching the air in frustration. He left a curt remark, "I understand. I apologize for keeping you here." Then Claude silently left. Watching his retreating figure, still confused, she stared after him in bewilderment. What's wrong with him? The next day, as promised, Dahlia went to the flower garden with Yuri and some servants. The scenery that day was beautiful. Yuri, carrying his puppy, looked at the scene before him, exclaimed. Yuri excitedly said, "Mother, it's even more beautiful than anything I've ever seen or read in books." Then Yuri released Zuzu. The puppy was free to frolic, teasing flowers and chasing butterflies. Yuri called out worriedly, "Zuzu, stop chasing it." Dahlia, standing next to a servant, watched her son play and reminded him, "Yuri, don't go too far." Yuri, watching a butterfly land on Zuzu's nose, chuckled with delight. Seeing her son playing happily, Dahlia felt a sense of relief. She said with emotion, "I'm so glad you like it." Suddenly, her mood darkened as she frowned slightly. Even if her gaze shifted to the person beside her, Claude, who seemed somewhat displeased. She wondered, "Your Majesty, isn't today the day you're leaving?" Claude made an excuse. "I just stopped by on my way." Hearing his reply, she nodded slightly and responded, "Oh, I see." Suddenly, Yuri stood in front of her and called out, "Mother!" Dahlia, startled, asked, "What is it, Yuri?" His cheeks flushed. Yuri regained his composure and cleared his throat a few times. He declared, "I'll show you some magic." Hearing that her son had a surprise for her, Dahlia's curiosity was piqued. "Magic!" He quickly held out some small flower petals in his hand, while Dahlia embraced the bouquet. Yuri tossed the petals into the air and recited an incantation. "Tajda, do you feel warmer now?" The bouquet was now covered in a layer of beautiful petals. Yuri's voice was shy. I tried to make this yesterday." Dahlia smiled happily and brought her hands to her face. "That's wonderful magic. Thank you, Yuri. I feel very warm now." Yuri laughed happily. Hee. Suddenly, Zuzu barked loudly, causing both mother and son to turn around curiously. Yuri's face paled in fright. "Oh, Zuzu." The puppy sat wagging its tail happily. It turned out to be sitting in front of Claude. His expression was impassive, cold, and sharp. Seeing Zuzu sitting in front of him, Claude remained silent. Zuzu, innocent and naive, wagged its tail as if trying to be friendly. Suddenly, Claude bent down and picked up a flower. Seeing this, Yuri stammered, I want to." Seeing his father accept the flower from Zuzu, Yuri felt a pang of jealousy. He wanted to give his father a flower too. He quickly ran over and hugged Zuzu, not wanting the puppy to take this opportunity. Yuri said, "Wait for me." Then he turned and ran off. At this moment, Claude was staring blankly at the flower in his hand, his mind empty. In the quiet atmosphere between the two of them, Claude softly asked, "What kind of magic did he say it was?" Dahlia recounted, "He likes the feeling of a warm heart, and he thinks that's magic." Touching the flowers gently, Dahlia's confidence grew. She shared, "I want to make Yuri happy." Her heartfelt words seemed to touch Claude's heart. He chuckled softly. Then a breeze swept through, causing the leaves to fall gently. Dahlia's hair fluttered in the wind. Her mood became serene. "It's been a long time since I've seen the sky like this." She glanced at Claude sitting beside her. She thought to herself, and beside him too. This was also the first time she had gone this far with this man. Dahlia reminisced. Ever since that door opened, so many things had changed. Dahlia looked up at the sky, her heart filled with a mix of emotions. In this life, she wondered if Yuri could ever forgive her again. A moment later, Claude softly said, "Trust me, you've succeeded." He presented a ring box in front of her. Claude spoke, "Here, wear this." Dahlia accepted the box. Inside was a ring with a sparkling diamond. Seeing it, Dahlia seemed to freeze, her mind going blank. "This is a ruby. It's a rare or found in the deepest part of the north. Only the royal family can mine it. It's mainly used for royal jewelry and rarely traded." Dahlia was astonished. "Why would you give me something so precious?" Claude looked at her and replied, "I retrieved it from the north yesterday." "Ah, I see." But in her mind, she was conflicted. "I can't accept something so valuable." Claude calmly said, "Unless you're a fool. You should understand your noble standing." He continued to hold the ring out to her. Dahlia still refused. I can't accept it. It's too precious for me." She continued sadly, "I come from a barren family." Hearing her, Claude asked in confusion, "You are an empress, aren't you?" Dahlia looked at him in surprise. Thinking to herself, "I know that. You don't know what you're saying." Finally, Dahlia accepted it. He said, "You can sell this. Do as you wish." "Thank you very much." From afar, Johann came running. "Forgive me, Your Majesty, I need you to confirm this." "Oh, let's go." He stood up and left, leaving Dahlia sitting there, lost in thought. Ruby, she stared intently at the ring in her hand. In my past life, I clung to the only thing I had, that necklace. How ironic, isn't it? Should I sell it? She joked, then called out Emma. Emma turned around cheerfully. "Yes, it doesn't mean anything. Thinking about it is pointless." She then handed the ring to Emma. "I'm sorry, but could you hold on to this for me?" "Yes, of course. It's an honor." She watched Emma leave, clutching the box, then looked over for Yuri. But when her eyes glanced over, she was startled. "Yuri? Where is he?" Yuri was by the riverbank, happily picking flowers. Suddenly, he heard Dudu's bark. He looked up. He saw Dudu rushing towards him from afar. "Hey, whoa!" The puppy jumped into the boy's arms, wagging his tail happily. "You scared me, Dudu." Remembering the previous scene, the boy scolded his puppy. "And don't play tricks on father." He held a red flower up high, admiring it. "This flower, I hope it will make father happy. My eyes and father's eyes are very similar." The puppy wagged his tail, as if urging him closer to the river. The clear water reflected his image, making the boy giggle. He looked up, taking in the scenery and the field of wildflowers. Then, with delight, he exclaimed, "I want to come here again." Duda barked in agreement. "Yuri, over here." Dahlia was looking around for Yuri. Where was he? She was overjoyed when she saw him. There he is. He stood up, about to head back. Let's go, Dudu. Suddenly, the world turned upside down. The two flowers fell from his hands. Seeing that he was about to fall into the river, he cried out in alarm, "Ah!" Dahlia, seeing this, rushed forward in terror, grabbed his hand, and shouted, "Yuri." She pulled him back with all her might. Yuri was thrown onto the ground, but Dahlia fell into the river. After Yuri came to his senses, he could only cry out, "Mother!" But Dahlia had sunk deep into the water. "This dress is so heavy. I can't breathe. I can't breathe." Despite this, she was still worried about her son. "Yuri, I wonder if you're all right. That red flower, you picked it for His Majesty, didn't you?" As her body sank deeper, she saw a figure heading towards her. Dahlia struggled to reach out towards the figure. Finally, she grasped the person's hand. It was Claude, before she lost consciousness. The next day, at Duke Strangler's mansion, Strangler was standing by the window, watching the birds fly. Someone must have said something, because his face darkened as he turned and asked, "Repeat that." It was Lucas. "The Crown Prince has invited me to his sword training session. Father, please let me go, at least once." He glanced at his son without saying a word. Lucas puffed out his chest. "The Crown Prince is no match for me in swordsmanship, so I want to teach him a thing or two." Duke Strangler silently assessed him. It seems he has a plan. I know he's lying. However, very well. You may go, if that is what you desire." He hadn't expected his father to agree, really? "Yes, I'm certain that seeing the Crown Prince train will inspire you. So go." Having received Strangler's permission, he was overjoyed. He tried to contain his excitement. "Pathetic. Thank you very much, father." As soon as Lucas left the room, he couldn't help but chuckle. Then, a more sinister laugh followed. "What an intriguing idea. Do you agree, Grim Reaper?" He addressed the brown-haired man who had been avoiding Lucas to go ahead and build a friendship with him. "Lucas, when the time comes, you will shatter it. That little crown prince will be utterly destroyed. And you, Lucas, you will take everything from him. The royal family will officially be annihilated." Back at the Imperial Palace, a mournful voice called out, "Mother, mother, is that Yuri?" Dahlia struggled to open her eyes. Before her, a family of three stood facing each other. Yuri and Claude were in fighting stances. Yuri was now grown. He said, "Please look at me." Dahlia was bewildered, unable to process what was happening. "Yuri, have I returned to my past life? Or is my new life just a dream? What's going on?" She saw Yuri accusing Claude. "Father, you never accepted me, not until this very moment. That's why." As soon as he finished speaking, he lunged at Claude, initiating the fight. Yuri was furious. "I have no other choice." Claude remained silent, pushing Yuri away. But he stubbornly pressed forward to attack again. But what could a mere boy do against a man seasoned by years of battle? Claude frowned at him, then delivered a decisive blow. Yuri was thrown back, his hand still trembling. Oh no! While he was still dazed, Claude approached, raising his sword high. Yuri could only brace himself, waiting for the sword to fall. But Claude hesitated. Seizing the opportunity, Yuri gritted his teeth with determination. He thrust his sword hard into Claude's chest, then stood looking at him for a moment. Then he whispered, "I hate this attitude of yours, father. I absolutely hate it." Dahlia just stood there watching, unable to do anything. It dawned on her. She understood. This was a memory from her past life. Yuri turned and walked away, sword in hand, advancing towards Dahlia. She looked at the sword, thinking that sword, it looks like. Sensing something strange, she raised her hands and looked at them. She saw her body begin to dissolve once again. Before disappearing, Dahlia heard her name, Leah, uttered from Claude's lips, the man who had abandoned her for so many years. Surprised, she widened her eyes and looked at him, only to see Claude reaching out to her, murmuring, "Leah, run." She opened her eyes wide, still in shock. Those around her looked worried, especially Yuri, who was crying his eyes out. Then he stood up and called out, "Mother, mother." Emma also rushed to her side, "Your Majesty." Dahlia still didn't understand what's going on. "I remember being killed again, but..." She looked at Yuri, who had climbed onto the bed and buried his face in her chest, sobbing. He whimpered, "It's all my fault. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Dahlia comforted him. "Yuri, it's not your fault." He looked up at her, but before he could finish, Claude instructed the steward standing behind him, "Get a doctor immediately." "Yes, Your Majesty." Their eyes met. He asked with concern, "How are you feeling, Your Majesty?" "I'm fine. My body is unharmed. Please don't worry." She thought Your Majesty. In her past and present life, he had never called her by that title. So when he said Dahlia, was it just a memory or just a dream? And looking at Claude, now silent, turning to Yuri, who was anxiously calling for his mother. She suddenly trembled. I don't know why I forgot about that moment until now. No, could be I missed something. Perhaps her body had been too frightened then. But even if it were real, it couldn't be. At the moment she was killed, that person was definitely there. The reflection from Yuri's sword. It was the shadow of a person. That shadow could be... Thinking of this, she clenched her hand, trying to remember. That shadow, could it be? She closed her eyes tightly, recalling the image as she fell. A figure behind Yuri, the image becoming clearer, a familiar face. Dahlia gasped, covering her mouth, whispering Lucas. Lucas, who had relentlessly tried to seize the throne. And of course, Lucas and Yuri were political enemies. But why was he with Yuri? The more she thought about it, the more violently Dahlia trembled. Yuri, watching from beside her, grew worried. Mother, are you still feeling unwell? Hearing her son's question, Dahlia snapped out her thoughts. She flexed her arm reassuringly. Not at all. I'm feeling much better now. Claude, sitting nearby, seemed relieved. If that's the case, then I shall return to my chambers. Mother and son stared at him blankly. Dahlia remembered her foolish actions earlier. When she had sunk while trying to retrieve the red flower, it was His Majesty who had jumped in and saved her. She clasped her hands together. I deeply apologize for causing you concern, Your Majesty, and thank you very much. Claude turned back to look at her for a moment before turning away again. Reaching the door, he said, very well. Please rest for a while. Dahlia was stunned by his concern. Was he worried about her? She mentally shook herself. That was impossible. Throughout their 15 years of marriage, His Majesty had always left her alone. Looking at him, she thought, there's no way he would change so easily. Picking up the box, Dahlia stared intently at it. This ring, Emma, noticing her prolonged gaze, asked, Your Majesty, would you like me to put this away safely for you? Please, it's not just the ring. His Majesty's actions lately have been so different. And she recalled him telling her, run away. Those words, were they just a dream? Or, unnoticed, Yuri had climbed onto the bed and grabbed her leg. Mother. Confused, Dahlia looked down as Yuri took her hand, studying it intently. His small hand, trying to encompass hers, touched her deeply. Yuri, he whispered, tears welling up. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Mother's hands aren't cold anymore. Seeing him trembling with tears, Dahlia panicked. Oh, Yuri. She opened her arms and smiled. Yuri, come here. He looked at her, bewildered, yes. Dahlia then lifted him into her embrace. This way, you can feel my warmth even better, right? He clung to her arm. Yes. I'm sorry. It's my fault. You wanted to make a bouquet for His Majesty, didn't you? She asked. However, going too close to the water is dangerous. No matter how well you can swim, you could still get into trouble. Dahlia held a small hand. Tea might be a rare flower, but Yuri, your life is much more precious. She hugged him tighter. That's why you shouldn't put yourself in danger anymore, understand? Yuri blushed, yes. If you go near any rivers or streams, you must make sure grown-up is with you. Yes, Mother. They both smiled again. Thank you for understanding. Yuri looked at her, thinking, but Mother, I should have been a capable crown prince. But at that moment, all I could do was stand there helplessly, watching Father save you. He climbed down from the bed, his eyes sad, still lost in thought, when I should have been the one protecting you. Dahlia looked at him with concern, Yuri. Outside the room, Lucas had arrived. Hey, is this the place? Is that brat here? A guard tried to stop him. Yes, but this is the Empress's room. But Lucas ignored him, pushing the door open and barging in. I'm coming in. Lucas stood with his arms crossed, provokingly. Hey, you weak little crown prince. Seeing Lucas, Dahlia was astonished. Why is Lucas here? Yuri's expression was just as surprised as Dahlia's. Thank you for watching today's video. Our story continues with many exciting developments ahead, so don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to support us and not miss the latest episodes. We wish you relaxing and enjoyable moments. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.